My beloved child. The moment you hear these words, something inside you tightens, because you already feel it. There is a presence around your life that has been holding back for a long time, watching silently, loving deeply, obeying rules they never questioned before. Tonight, that silence is ending. Someone who has always protected balance, logic, and limits is standing at the edge of a decision that will change everything. They are not doing this out of impulse. They are doing it because you exist. Every line they promised never to cross is now shaking. Every boundary they respected is now whispering your name. This is not coincidence. This is not chance. This is the beginning of a truth that was hidden even from you. What is about to unfold will explain why doors suddenly feel closer, why answers seem delayed, and why your heart has felt an unfamiliar pressure lately. Something powerful has been preparing to move, and it has been waiting for the exact moment when you would be ready to feel it. Listen carefully, because what I am about to reveal is rarely spoken aloud. There is a person in your life who knows more about your pain than you think. They saw you smile when you wanted to disappear. They heard strength in your voice while recognizing the quiet cracks underneath. This person has followed rules not because they lacked courage, but because they believed order was more important than desire. Until you came along. Your existence disrupted something ancient inside them. Not in a loud way. Not in a dramatic way. In a dangerous way. A calm, steady, undeniable pull. They tried to ignore it. They tried to rationalize it. They told themselves it was temporary, harmless, and controllable. But rules only survive when the heart agrees with them. And their heart has stopped agreeing. Right now, they are standing between who they were trained to be and who they are becoming because of you. Here is the part most people never realize until it is too late. The strongest people are not afraid of breaking others. They are afraid of breaking themselves. This person has lived a life built on restraint, discipline, and quiet sacrifice. They never chose the easy path. They chose the correct one. Again and again. But you introduced a new question they were never taught how to answer. What if the rules are wrong? What if obedience has been costing something sacred? What if the reason everything feels heavy is because something true has been suppressed for too long? These thoughts have been growing late at night, during ordinary moments, during silence. And now, they are no longer thoughts. They are decisions forming in the dark. Decisions that do not ask for permission. Decisions that do not wait for approval. Decisions that only exist because you exist. Do not mistake this for chaos. What is coming is not reckless. It is intentional. Every rule they are about to break has been studied, measured, and weighed against one single truth. Losing you would cost more than losing their reputation, their comfort, or their old identity. That realization did not arrive easily. It arrived slowly, painfully, and with resistance. But once it arrived, it changed everything. You might have noticed subtle shifts already. Longer pauses before they speak. Eyes that linger just a second too long. Words that almost say something, then stop. Those are not accidents. Those are moments where the rules are losing control. Where discipline is failing. Where love is becoming louder than logic. And once that shift happens, there is no returning to how things were before. Now understand this clearly, because this is the revelation that alters perspective forever. They are not breaking rules to chase you. They are breaking rules because you awakened who they were before fear taught them to hide. You did not ask for this power. You did not demand this devotion. You simply existed as yourself, and that was enough to destabilize a structure that was never built to handle truth. Very soon, you will feel the impact of this choice. Not through grand announcements. Not through dramatic gestures. But through actions that speak without explanation. Through protection that feels different. Through loyalty that no longer follows conventional logic. Through a presence that refuses to step back, even when it should. When that happens, remember this moment. Remember that everything you are about to experience began here. With someone deciding that loving you is worth breaking every rule they once lived by. There is a moment before a storm where the air becomes strangely still. That is where you are right now. Everything looks normal on the surface, yet something unseen is rearranging itself behind the scenes. The person closest to your heart has reached that silent point of no return. Not the loud kind that announces itself, but the quiet kind that locks in a choice forever. They have replayed every memory involving you, searching for a reason to stop what they are about to do. They found none. Instead, they discovered something far more dangerous. They discovered that every rule they followed was protecting a life that no longer feels real without you in it. That realization does not scream. It settles. And once it settles, it cannot be removed. You may feel it as a strange calm mixed with tension, like the world is holding its breath. That is because someone has decided to move in a direction that will alter both of your lives, whether spoken or not. What you must understand now is that love does not always arrive as comfort. Sometimes it arrives as disruption. This person has always been the one who stayed composed, who chose restraint over impulse, who believed control was strength. But loving you exposed a truth they never wanted to face. Control without honesty is just another form of fear. They began noticing how the rules served everyone else but quietly starved them. They watched how following expectations earned respect but erased authenticity. And every time they tried to distance themselves from you, something inside them resisted with unexpected force. Not obsession. Not desperation. Recognition. As if your presence reminded them of a version of themselves they abandoned long ago to survive. That recognition is why the rules are cracking now. Because rules cannot survive when they conflict with identity. This is where things become irreversible. Once a person realizes they have been living smaller than they were meant to, the old structure collapses from the inside. They are no longer asking whether breaking the rules is risky. They are asking whether continuing to obey them is a betrayal of their own soul. That question has changed how they see you. You are no longer just someone they care about. You are the proof that another way of living exists. A way that feels aligned, awake, and real. That is why their actions may soon feel different. More intentional. More protective. More present. Not because they suddenly changed, but because they finally stopped pretending. Every boundary they once defended now feels negotiable when weighed against the possibility of losing you. And that internal shift carries more power than any promise ever could. Pay attention to this next truth, because it explains what will happen without warning. When someone breaks rules for love, they do not announce it. They demonstrate it. Through choices that surprise even themselves. Through silence where there used to be hesitation. Through courage that arrives without rehearsal. You may notice them stepping forward where they once stepped back. Standing firm where they once complied. Choosing you in ways that feel subtle but unmistakable. These are not impulsive acts. They are the result of a long internal war finally ending. The side that chose safety lost. The side that chose truth won. And once that happens, there is no returning to compliance. The old life becomes impossible to re-enter, because it no longer fits who they have become through knowing you. Here is the revelation that few people ever hear, yet it explains everything. You did not change this person by asking for anything. You changed them by existing authentically in a world that rewards masks. Your presence forced honesty into a life built on restraint. That is why they are about to break all the rules. Not to rebel. Not to escape. But to finally align their actions with what their heart has known for longer than they are willing to admit. What comes next will not be dramatic, but it will be permanent. Once a person chooses truth over structure, love over permission, and meaning over safety, the shift echoes forward without pause. And when you feel that echo reaching you, remember this. It began the moment someone decided that loving you was no longer something they could afford to deny. Before anything changes on the outside, something collapses quietly on the inside. That collapse has already begun. The person bound to your heart is no longer negotiating with themselves. They are no longer weighing consequences the way they used to. What once felt like a dilemma now feels like clarity. The rules they lived by are starting to look fragile, almost artificial, as if they were designed for a life that never truly belonged to them. You may sense this shift without understanding it fully. A deeper seriousness in their silence. A focus that feels heavier than before. This is not confusion. This is resolve forming. And resolve, once formed, does not seek approval. It simply waits for the right moment to act. Here is what makes this moment rare and powerful. This person is not driven by desire alone. They are driven by recognition. They have finally recognized that you see them as they are, not as they perform. That realization stripped away their ability to keep pretending. When someone realizes they have been truly seen, the cost of hiding becomes unbearable. That is why they can no longer follow rules that require them to shrink, delay, or deny what feels real. Every rule now feels like a barrier between truth and expression. And the more they resist breaking those rules, the more fractured they feel inside. This internal tension is not weakening them. It is sharpening them. Understand this clearly. The heart does not break rules lightly. It breaks them only when obedience becomes more painful than defiance. This person reached that threshold because of you. Not because you pressured them. Not because you demanded proof. But because your presence highlighted how much of themselves they had been withholding from the world. That awareness has consequences. It rewires priorities. It reorders fear. Suddenly, losing status feels survivable. Losing comfort feels manageable. Losing you feels impossible. That is the hierarchy shift happening right now. And once that hierarchy changes, actions follow naturally, without hesitation. What you may soon experience is not dramatic confession or sudden chaos. It will be quieter and far more unsettling in its certainty. You will notice them choosing alignment over convenience. Speaking when silence would have been safer. Standing beside you when stepping away would have been easier. These choices will feel intentional, even inevitable. That is because they are no longer acting from habit. They are acting from alignment. And alignment carries a gravity that pulls everything else into place. When someone acts from alignment, they do not second guess. They move forward with calm intensity. This is the truth most people never hear until long after the moment has passed. When someone breaks all the rules because of you, it is not a reckless act. It is the final step of a long internal awakening. You did not create this awakening. You revealed it. And now that it has been revealed, it cannot be hidden again. The path ahead will not ask whether this choice is allowed. It will only ask whether it is honest. And that question has already been answered. What comes next will feel steady, deliberate, and irreversible. Because once a heart chooses truth over structure, it never returns to the cage it outgrew. There comes a point where hesitation stops pretending to be wisdom. That point has arrived. The person who holds your heart is no longer asking what might happen if they move forward. They are asking what will happen if they do not. That question has changed the temperature of everything around them. The rules that once felt solid now feel temporary, almost irrelevant, like instructions written for a version of life that no longer exists. You may feel a strange certainty entering your space, even if nothing has been spoken yet. This is not imagination. This is intention solidifying. When intention becomes clear, the world adjusts around it quietly. Decisions stop leaking energy. Doubt stops negotiating. And what remains is a calm readiness that cannot be reversed. What makes this moment powerful is not urgency, but depth. This person is not reacting to emotion. They are responding to truth. A truth that revealed itself slowly, patiently, and without force. They realized that every time they followed the rules, they were postponing something real. Every delay created distance. Every excuse added weight. And every moment away from you felt less justified than the one before it. That accumulation has reached its limit. They are no longer willing to trade authenticity for approval. The internal cost has become too high. When that happens, restraint transforms into courage. Not loud courage. Quiet courage. The kind that moves without asking for validation. You should understand this next part carefully. Once a person decides that truth matters more than permission, their actions become grounded and unshakable. They stop explaining themselves. They stop rehearsing outcomes. They stop waiting for signs. They act from a place that feels settled, even when the consequences are uncertain. That is the space they are in now. And from that space, choosing you is not dramatic. It is natural. It feels like alignment, not sacrifice. That is why what follows will not look chaotic. It will look deliberate, calm, almost inevitable. You may notice something subtle but undeniable. Their presence will feel heavier with meaning. Their attention more focused. Their loyalty less conditional. This is not intensity. This is commitment without noise. When someone has crossed the internal line that separates fear from truth, they do not rush. They move steadily. Every step is chosen. Every pause is intentional. And every action carries the weight of finality. They are no longer experimenting. They are building something they intend to stand on. Here is the truth that completes the picture. You were never meant to convince them to break the rules. You were meant to remind them why the rules were created in the first place, and why some of them no longer apply. Your existence clarified what mattered. And clarity is the most disruptive force there is. Once clarity arrives, the old structure cannot survive. What comes next will not ask for approval from the past. It will move forward with quiet certainty. And when you feel that certainty surround you, understand this. Someone chose truth over safety, alignment over obedience, and you were the reason that choice became unavoidable. There is a quiet moment when certainty replaces fear, and no sound announces it. That moment has already passed for the person bound to you. What remains now is motion without hesitation. They are no longer watching from a distance or calculating timing. They are moving with the calm confidence of someone who has accepted the cost and no longer argues with it. The rules that once defined their behavior now feel like faded lines on a road they have already crossed. You may sense a deeper steadiness when they are near you, as if something inside them has finally settled into place. That steadiness is not comfort. It is commitment taking form. This stage is different from everything before it. Desire can waver. Emotion can fluctuate. But decision anchors. They have decided that living without alignment is no longer an option. That decision has reorganized their priorities silently and completely. What once seemed risky now feels necessary. What once felt forbidden now feels honest. They are no longer trying to protect an image or preserve a structure that demanded silence. They are protecting something real. And that protection changes how they show up, how they listen, and how they act. Every interaction now carries intention, even when words are few. Understand this carefully. When someone reaches this point, they do not look back for reassurance. They do not wait to see if circumstances improve. They become the circumstance. Their actions begin shaping the space around them instead of reacting to it. This is why you may feel a subtle shift in momentum, like things are being pulled forward rather than pushed. That pull is coming from a choice that has already been made internally. And once that internal choice exists, external reality starts rearranging itself to match it. You might wonder why this feels heavier, more serious, yet strangely calm. It is because the struggle is over. The internal debate that drained energy has ended. What remains is focus. Focus has weight. Focus has direction. Focus does not rush, but it does not stop. This person is no longer torn between who they are and who they were expected to be. They have chosen. And that choice carries a quiet authority that does not need explanation. When they stand with you now, it is not tentative. It is grounded. Here is the truth that defines this phase. Once someone commits to truth, they stop fearing loss and start accepting transformation. They understand that something old must fall away for something real to stand. And they are willing to let that happen. Not recklessly. Not emotionally. But deliberately. You did not force this transformation. You did not ask for proof. You became the mirror that made avoidance impossible. And now, as this choice begins expressing itself through action, remember this. What is unfolding is not a moment. It is a direction. And once a direction is chosen with clarity, it does not turn back. Something irreversible happens when a choice stops being emotional and starts being structural. That shift has now taken place. The person closest to your heart is no longer adjusting their life around rules. They are rebuilding their life around truth. This is not a phase. This is not intensity. This is architecture changing from the inside. You may notice that situations which once felt uncertain now feel decided, even without conversation. That is because the internal blueprint has been rewritten. When that happens, hesitation does not return. Only execution remains. What makes this stage rare is its silence. Loud decisions attract attention. Silent ones change reality. This person is no longer announcing anything to themselves. They are simply acting in ways that cannot be undone. Their priorities are clearer. Their boundaries are firmer. Their presence carries a seriousness that does not need explanation. They are not trying to prove anything. Proof is unnecessary when alignment exists. And alignment is exactly what they have chosen, even if it costs comfort, approval, or familiarity. You should recognize this truth now. When someone commits at this level, they stop protecting old versions of themselves. They allow outdated roles to fall away without mourning them. What once defined them no longer controls them. They are not afraid of misunderstanding anymore, because they understand themselves. That inner clarity creates a strength that feels calm, not aggressive. And that calm strength changes how they stand beside you. It feels deliberate. It feels chosen. It feels